Hello and welcome to Finding Solutions. I'm Dan Albus, the Member of Parliament for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. And on this podcast, we focus on real issues, real people, and practical solutions that can help strengthen our communities and hopefully our country. Today's conversation is about the life and legacy of Bailey McCourt, a young Kelowna mother whose murder shocked our community and sparked calls for change, not just across British Columbia, but across the country. Joining me are two friends of this podcast who will always answer the call to share their advocacy and work. Today, we're very fortunate to have Debbie Henderson representing Bailey's family and Kristina Loewen, MLA for Kelowna Centre. Together, they have worked to turn a devastating loss into a catalyst for change, helping advance Bailey's law federally while continuing to advocate for additional reforms here in British Columbia. So today, we're going to discuss Bailey's story, the journey from tragedy to advocacy, the impact of Bailey's law now that it's passed, and what more can be done to better protect victims of intimate partner violence. We'll also explore practical solutions being considered at the provincial level and what lessons can be learned to prevent future tragedies. Debbie, Kristina, thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
So Debbie, let's start with Bailey. Just so our listeners can know, who was she? What would you want listeners to know about the person behind the headlines?
Bailey was a mother of two young girls, very family-oriented. She was close with her dad and her sister, as well as her stepsisters. She was very outgoing. I actually met Bailey 6 years ago. She's my brother-in-law's daughter. And when I first met her, you couldn't help but talk to her. She was so incredibly outgoing, very extroverted, very funny, very quick-witted. And she had a strong will. You could see that in some of the conversations we had. She knew what she thought, and she didn't mind sharing it.
So looking back now, where do you believe this system ultimately failed her?
I go back to Bill C-75 every single time. It has the provision of restraint, and basically that instructs judges to release a perpetrator at the earliest opportunity with the least amount of restriction. Bail is also for people who have the presumption of innocence, and the day that he was released, he was found guilty of uttering threats and assault. He shouldn't have been released. He's no longer presumed innocent. He's been found guilty, and he was released into the public. No proper notification to Bailey. She knew he was found guilty. She didn't know that they had released him. She didn't know she needed to be on guard. Shouldn't have to be on guard, but she didn't know that she should be on guard. And that's a system failure as well, which I know we'll get into later.
So when you think back to the days and weeks following her murder, what stands out in your memory?
I was angry. Our family was angry, grieving, and this was 100% preventable. So I think going through grief and everything that goes along with someone losing their life, and especially through murder, there's so many different aspects. There's, family law needs to be dealt with, her estate, funeral arrangements, dealing with police, the investigations. It's a lot. And so our family sort of split things up. I was asked by my brother-in-law to take on being the spokesperson for the family and dealing with the political changes that were very evident are needed.
So your family was thrust into those circumstances, and that's no family wants to face those kinds of challenges. So how did your journey from grieving her loss to becoming, like you said, the family said you're going to be the front line for advocacy. Yeah. How did you deal with that?
It was stressful. To be honest, I am a very private person. I like living my quiet life. But family is very important to me, and I would never say no if there's something I could do to help. I used to be a nurse as well. And my primary number one job as a nurse was to advocate for my patients. So I think it did come naturally that this is something that I need to do.
So Kristina, I'm sure if you remember back to the days and weeks after Bailey's murder, I was getting inundated with phone calls, emails, people writing notes, dropping them off in my office, just outlining how angry they were. What did you remember?
Yeah, so similarly, it was a story that struck a chord with a lot of people. And I think some of the reasons, summer is meant to be a time for family, fun, barbecues, middle of the day murder. And then you take this individual, Bailey, who was such a vibrant young mother, had everything to live for, and she'd done everything right. She'd followed the law, she'd reported, she'd documented, she did everything right, and the system failed her. And I think that's really what got people upset and riled up and really starting to show up en masse. I went to the first court appearance, and that courtroom was full. And, it's a story that it struck a chord and it resonated with a lot of people. And then I also think the advocacy of the family has been huge to carry it on. So that's just huge testimony to Debbie and her work. Yeah.
So from your perspective as a legislator, what lessons do you think governments, courts, and justice officials should take from Bailey's case?
Yeah, so certainly what Debbie was saying about the federal bill C-75, that needs to be remedied, and we're seeing that happen with Bailey's Law, thankfully. And then in the case of the province, we're asking for specific things with taking into account risk assessments and offender registries, and looking across the jurisdictions, taking into account that history that's really important. One of the things in Bailey's case, she'd been strangled previously by the person that ultimately took her life. And when somebody is strangled by their intimate partner, they're 750 times more likely to be killed by that individual. So looking at risk assessments like that and risk factors like that. The other thing that we're asking for, and Debbie's been a huge advocate for this, is the GPS monitoring with victim alerts. And she has got some incredible stats from Spain and Portugal. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I'm sure you'd love to talk about that.
Yeah. So in Spain and Portugal, they have a system with the GPS monitoring with geofencing. So it geofences areas such as school, work, home. Not only that, they actually have a system where it's mobile geofencing as well. If you take into account, I have my own patterns. People can tell which grocery store I go to if they're in my life. They know where I shop. They know where I bank, all that kind of stuff. And if you just geofence home, school, work, people are needing to go grocery shopping, needing to go do those things. So it takes away from their safety when there's no mobile monitoring. And in Spain, they have mobile monitoring. So if an individual goes to a grocery store, they can receive a real-time alert. Anytime that individual that has that ankle monitor on, it will alert them through their phone to let them know that that individual is in the area. And it gives them time to make a plan, leave the area, call the police, whatever needs to be done. And in Spain, people that are involved in this system, it's been 98% effective. There have been very few deaths. And what I've read is it's only associated with the individual not carrying their alert system. Even if it was only a 10% improvement, even if it only saved one life, isn't that worth it? There's no dollar amount that you can put on a life. And this is something that can be relatively cheaply implemented. And one of my concerns has been, when you're dealing with certain people in government, it always comes down to a dollar value. And can we afford it? Is it in the budget? And if you look at stats that's provided from our own government, when somebody is murdered or there's a violent crime, it automatically costs $400,000. Then if you look a bigger picture, in Bailey's case, we're obviously hoping her ex-husband goes away for life in prison. You start looking at that level, and it costs over $5 million per murder. There is absolutely no excuse that the government can present that will make this not happen.
It's literally preventing what people know, like 750 times more likely if you've assaulted or choked your partner, that person's going to murder them.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Portugal and Spain as other examples. Are there any provinces that are doing a better job than British Columbia?
Quebec also has a program. I don't have their stats, unfortunately, and I know that Alberta is looking at implementing this. I've been trying to connect with some MLAs. I've already spoken to an MP, and they're trying to connect me with some of the right people in Alberta. Just because I want to understand more of what they're trying to implement, and will it include the mobile monitoring? Because I think it's a true disservice just to have people only protected in their home, work, or school.
So both of you have done a lot of research into this. So what is one thing about intimate partner violence that you think that more Canadians should be aware of?
That's a good question.
It's vastly underreported. And to be honest, I now understand why. The system does not currently protect individuals to the level that it needs to. So if it's going to increase the risk of you or your children losing their lives, they're going to keep quiet.
Yeah, I would just say, we've called it an epidemic. It's huge. I believe the stats are every 6 days in Canada, a woman's murdered by intimate partner violence. It's increased dramatically in recent years. And like I said, we've declared it an epidemic. But the system's not trusted. Very few are being reported. So it's tough to say, go and report it, because we need those stats. But the system might not support you. And that's not really the message I want to send today. But unfortunately, that kind of is the way things are right now. So, we're hoping that by raising our voices, me provincially and in the legislature, and Debbie as a family advocate, that we can see some significant changes come down the pike, because we're certainly talking about it a lot. We have the reports, we have the recommendations, and they're being very slowly implemented, if at all, so far. And so, yeah.
I'd like to go back to the provincial a little bit, but maybe we can just talk a little bit about what it felt like to have Bailey's Law C-225 pass through both houses. How is the family reacting to that?
It's a relief. It's been a fast but slow process. Fast in terms of this is one of the quickest bills, private member bills, to go through, but also from a human standpoint, it feels very slow. When you see a need for change, you want it to happen right away. We don't want to be watching the news and hearing more and more individuals that have lost their lives. So I think it's bittersweet. We know why we were there, and it's terrible why we were there, the reason behind it, but it was needed, and we were so happy to see it pass. And I think it's motivating. When you don't see change happening, or you don't feel like you're being heard, you lose hope. And with this bill passing, I can say that the individuals that I've spoken to that are currently going through this and have reached out, they have hope.
So in the bill itself, there was a number of different provisions, changes to the criminal code. Yeah. Maybe if you could just give some of our listeners an idea of what ones were really important from your viewpoint.
One of the major ones for us, it was Frank Caputo, MP Caputo, had drafted actually this bill in the previous parliament. And he was able to bring it forward this year. And he included the provision of presumptive first-degree murder, which includes elements of coercive control. And that's part of what was added because of Bailey's murder and because of our family's advocacy. So for us, that was big. And the next thing is with manslaughter, a judge has to take into account and decide that if that they would go with life in prison. So they have to look at ineligibility for parole between 10 and 25 years. They also have, when you assault somebody, it's recorded as an assault. Bill C-225 changes that. So when you have an intimate partner assault, it shows up as violence against an intimate partner, which is really helpful for the police to see that. When they see an assault charge, they don't know if you beat somebody up at Walmart or in a bar. And this gives them the knowledge that it was an intimate partner.
So it identifies that this person is, again, going to that 750 times difference, that there's a high likelihood, and that should be taken absolutely into account. Kristina, just from your perspective, you've been researching some of these things. Where in British Columbia are the shortfalls, and what are some of the ideas you're bringing to light?
So really looking at some kind of offender registry and risk assessment, I think would be really important. Just anecdotally in my own office, I've had several women come forward and, allege assault. And you can look up on the public records, their name and the individual that they're alleging assaulted them. And you can find nothing on them and a history of assault charges on the individual. And some of these women have themselves been charged in relation to him only, but he's got other history of intimate partner violence relationships or, other, criminal traffic and drug related charges. And so you can clearly see a pattern, and, the woman, and I've got at least several cases that have come through my office, is, the only charges against her are related to him, and she's feeling at risk just even coming forward. So certainly that's something we could be looking at, is like, how can we protect this individual when we have a history here?
Yeah. And I know how when you have vulnerable people coming to your office, because someone comes to my office and their partner contacts us several days later, we never give any information out.
Yes.
And so the fact that they've come to you, they've already, have taken that leap. And anyway, that's a big challenge.
And they're scared to do that.
Yes. Yeah. No. And so having the system recognize that there's those patterns is really, really important. So if each of you could implement one change tomorrow that would make a difference, what would that be in your mind?
For me, it would be the GPS monitoring. If we could, I look at it from a triaging standpoint. I think that one would immediately make a difference and immediately help save lives.
I would agree. I think that's the easiest, most concrete thing that we can implement that would have probably the biggest effect. But I also think the history and the risk assessment would be huge.
So you made a trek along with other members of Bailey's family to make advocacy and representation in Victoria. And I know you were helping them alongside. Maybe Kristina, you could say what some of the formal meetings were, some of the things that were said, and then maybe we can get Debbie to kind of flesh out what she felt was actually a helpful step.
Yeah. So back in May, Debbie came to Victoria and met with myself and other members of caucus. We also had Laura Gover's family, not her family. They've been very clear. They're friends of Laura Gover. She was murdered in January, in intimate partner violence, allegedly. So on May 26th, I believe it was, I had a motion on the papers to call on Senate as a House collectively together to call in unity on Senate to expedite Bailey's Law, and to also table concrete steps in the province of BC as to what we would do. I ultimately was not able to speak to the motion, but I did give a really passionate 2-minute statement that I feel very honored and privileged to do in Victoria, where I spoke about the women who've been murdered recently in BC, and of course, significantly Bailey, and got to speak a little bit about that situation, her life, and how we need to treat this seriously and implement things now. So I felt like it was really productive. And I think that as a result, you also got to meet with members of government. So you can speak to that.
Yeah, we ended up meeting with the public safety minister while we were there. When Bailey was first murdered, we had written a letter, and our premier had received that letter, hand-delivered it to Mark Carney, and in there it talked about various things that we wanted to see. The presumptive first-degree murder, that's federal. The GPS monitoring was in there as well. And really hadn't heard back since last year. Given that we've seen what has happened federally in such a short period of time, I would have hoped that there would have been more movement from our provincial government. So having that opportunity to be in Victoria and have that meeting, have that conversation about, the research that we've looked at, and hopefully get them to get on it. Again, there's no excuses. So I think it was an important meeting to have, and having them have that conversation face to face, I think is really important. These are human lives. These are people that are affected, and we need to do something.
So was any commitment made to review or, send us the email about Portugal and the examples of how they've been incorporating it? Has there been any response that you've received either?
I don't believe so. I think there was some openness to it. They saw some value. I believe the minister said it was very convincing.
Yeah.
But that was about it. So
okay. So I guess this is where, again, old-fashioned advocacy as an MLA, and that's it's going to be the follow-through.
Yeah. We continue on.
Okay.
We're not going to forget about it.
So for both of you, what would you say to a family that feels the system has failed them and or that their voice doesn't make a difference?
I agree. The system has failed you. It's failed so many, and I'm so sorry for that, for each individual going through this. But together, our voices will make a difference. And I can say that after this year and Bill C-225, Bailey's Law passing, our voices together will make a difference. And there is a lot of support. Kristina, for example, and you, I know your offices are always open and you genuinely care. And so I would encourage people to reach out the best that they can. I know in certain circumstances, it's not safe for them to do so. But people are here, we are here, and we're going to keep pushing for change. And so don't give up.
I agree with that. I mean, the validation piece is super important. The system has failed you, but don't stop. Keep reporting. Obviously, if it's safe to do so, your MLA office and your MP office is confidential. So if you need somebody to come and help and sort that out, please come and see us. Keep reporting. It's really important that we get the system fixed.
Well, I think it's really important. First of all, I have to thank both of you for your voices. Debbie, I've heard you give speeches on this, and it just brings like a tear to your eye every time because I know where you're coming from. And Kristina, I've also had a number of MLAs tell me about your statement in the House. And maybe what we can do is try and see if we can add the clip to this video, because I think it's really important people hear that there are champions and they are pressing for that change that we need. So from both of you, maybe we'll just finish on this note. What does success look like? If let's just say in 10 years, what kind of changes to the system will we say where we could say things have gotten better?
Well, I'd say a system that sends a message that we don't accept this. So I like the changes with Bailey's Law, and I'd love to see the provincial changes as well. And society as a whole recognizing, British Columbians and Canadians do not accept intimate partner violence. It's not okay. We're for prevention, we're for education, and we also are afraid to punish because we do not accept it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think too, changes to family law. That becomes a very huge issue for people trying to leave an abusive situation. And there's so many areas within family law that it doesn't support an individual leaving, and often children are weaponized. Mm-hmm. So I would really like to see everything that we've mentioned, but also that component of family law and dealing with prevention, providing education, showing that there is accountability for your actions, I think is very huge. And for people growing up, they're seeing that there is no accountability for action. People are getting out on the street constantly. It's a revolving door. And so I think if there's some changes with that, also education for younger people, then hopefully we can break the cycle and start early.
So if you could leave our viewers with one message today, what would it be?
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, both of you, thank you very much for sharing your experiences and insight and your commitment, particularly to make things better. Bailey's story is one that continues to resonate deeply throughout the Okanagan. And while nothing can undo the loss her family's experienced, her legacy, I believe, is already helping drive important conversations and meaningful reforms. So today's discussion reminds us that addressing intimate partner violence requires more than just good intentions. It requires listening to families, learning from the tragedy, and being willing to improve the system that we have to remind politicians are there to protect people. So thank you again, Debbie, for all you do. Kristina, for your work as an MLA. Thank you for helping us in this important conversation of where we go now beyond Bailey's Law. And to the people watching, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with others, and stay tuned for more episodes of Finding Solutions. Till next time, I'm Dan Albus. Thank you for listening. Take care of one another, and let's keep finding solutions together.